Good morning. How are you?
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lisbon Addictions 2015. I'm afraid we've had to begin the session without the Secretary of State, who's on his way, but unfortunately is held up in lots of traffic. So he will join us later in the programme of this opening session. I'm Rosemary de Souza. I'm Head of Communication at the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction, and it's my great pleasure this morning to be able to introduce the speakers on this distinguished panel at the opening of really what I think is a milestone event, the first conference on addictive behaviours and dependencies. And as you have seen, the Secretary of State has just arrived, so we can begin as planned. Now, our first speaker is João Goulão. João Goulão is the General Director for Intervention on Addictive Behaviours and Dependencies. His organisation is more commonly known by its Portuguese acronym, CICAD, and that's what you'll see in the programme and documentation you have on this conference. João Goulão, you have the floor. Please do come.
Dear Secretary of State, Assistant to the Minister of Health, Mr. Fernando Leal da Costa, dear Editor-in-Chief of Addiction, Professor Robert West, dear Director of the MCDDA, Mr. Wolfgang Gotz, dear President of ISAGE, Mr. Richard Pates, dear Representative of the DG Health and Food Safety of the European Commission, Mr. Philippe Roux, distinguished experts and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am both honored and delighted to host the first conference on addictive behaviors and dependencies and to welcome you on behalf of CICAD to Lisbon. I am very pleased to see that an initiative that seemed to be very difficult to achieve at the beginning became a major event. The interest of having such a comprehensive and multidisciplinary event, showing the latest developments in addiction research in the specialist areas of illicit drugs, alcohol, tobacco, gambling, and other addictive behaviors, is very much clear. Lisbon Addictions 2015 has reached its maximum capacity in July, attracting over 600 participants from 58 countries. We will hear 16 keynote speeches, more than 200 oral presentations, and around 140 rapid communications, as well as various side events such as sponsored sessions and workshops that will take place in the margins of the conference. Some of the most renewed experts in the addictions and drug-related fields, acting as members of the conference scientific committee, provided guidance on the scientific content of the event. They reviewed more than 300 proposals submitted for paper presentations, rapid communications and symposia.
Our next speaker is Robert West. Robert West is Editor-in-Chief of the journal Addiction. He is also the Professor of Health Psychology at University College London. Robert, the floor is yours. Please come.
Thank you very much. And the fact that we're all here today now, and there's so many of you, is really little short of a miracle. Not much over a year ago, the scientific director of the ENC DDA phoned me up, I think, and said, I've got this really mad idea. And what about the idea of having a European conference? And John Marsden, who's my deputy editor at Addiction, and I mulled it over with him for a while, and we were not quite sure whether it's going to work or not, and whether anyone would come, and whether there was enough demand for it. But actually very quickly what happened was it became clear that this was an idea whose time was absolutely right. That there was so much interest, that there was so much of a need out there for a pan-European conference of this kind that could bring together all the different disciplines and the different substances and bring the science together with the policy. That clearly this was an idea that, as I say, whose time had come. And somewhat less than a year ago, we got the green light. And to organise a conference of this kind in less than a year, of this size, this complexity, this magnitude, is really something of a miracle. And the people who've been involved in doing this really have done a fantastic job. I don't know if any of you know the film Wayne's World. And this guy, he doesn't know whether anyone's going to come. And at the end of the film, there's this sort of magical moment when you see all these hordes of people coming towards this field that he's organised the conference in. And this is what it feels like now. I think that clearly there's a demand for this. You're here, for which thank you very much indeed for your participation. I hope you have a fantastic time. Addiction and the Society for the Study of Addiction are absolutely thrilled to be part of this. We think that this is going to become a really major event in the calendar for the future, and there's lots of ways in which we can contribute to it. One other thing I should just say before I finish is that one of the very exciting things about being involved in the organisation of this conference is that you get to start a conference from scratch. And when you start a conference from scratch, it means that you can do all the things that you think other conferences have got wrong. Now, it may be that all those great ideas about how to run a conference that we're starting with here, and maybe not all of them are great. They seem like a good idea. We think they are. It's a very packed programme, as you can see. There's a huge amount of information. And we've also tried to ensure that we get plenty of time for discussion and for networking, because we believe, I guess like most of you do, that networking is a huge part of the whole experience. Anyway, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to be involved in it. I think we're in for a real treat over the next 2.5 days. Thank you for coming, and thank you to the organisers, and thank you to the other speakers, and I'll see you all over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. We're now going to hear from Wolfgang Goetz. Wolfgang Goetz is the director of the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction, the EMCDDA. Wolfgang, please do come.
Dear Secretary of State for Health, dear Director General of CCAT, dear colleagues on the panel, and dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a great pleasure for me to be here today and to say a few words on the opening of Lisbon Addictions 2015. As we already learned, it's the first European conference on addictive behaviors and dependencies. I think Robert West already made very clear that Lisbon Addictions 2015 is clearly a milestone for the European and international scientific community working on substance use and addiction. In Europe, this is the first time that such a large, multidisciplinary and cross-cutting event has been organized in this field. And the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction is very proud to have had an active role in its conception, planning, and now in its delivery. To promote the sharing of research findings that can inform policy discussions and support effective responses is at the very core of the mission of the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction. For this reason, over the past 20 years, we have been progressively strengthening our relationship with the European and international research community. And I'm well aware of the hard work that the organizing committee has put in this conference over the past year in order to bring you innovative, state-of-the-art research, opportunities for networking, it was always stressed how important this is, and options for forging partnerships and synergies. The EMCDA's contribution to this event fits very well with our commitment to providing practitioners and policymakers with evidence-based information. As most of you are aware, this year the EMCDDA is commemorating 20 years of monitoring the drugs problem in Europe. And we wanted to derive maximum benefit from having so many experts here in Lisbon for this conference to create synergies with our more regular EMCDDA business. And for this reason, earlier this week, we organized the EMCDDA conference 20 years of monitoring and communicating evidence on drugs. The purpose of this other EMCDDA conference was to review the achievements of our first 20 years of work, as well as to reflect on how to further continue producing robust and up-to-date information for decision-making. On a more personal note, I would like to mention that this is my last major conference as director of the EMCDDA. It has been, and it still is, a privilege for me to serve this agency and the stakeholders for more than 10 years. And it's with a great sense of accomplishment that I will hand over to Alexis Gostil the position of EMCDDA Director from 1st of January 2016. Many of you know I have been working closely with Alexis for more than 16 years, and this is now the second time he is becoming my successor. He already became my successor 10 years ago. So when I tell you that the EMCDDA and you, the stakeholders, will be in very good hands, you understand that this is not coming out of the blue. I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful meeting and a pleasant stay in sunny Lisbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. We're now going to hear from Richard Pates. Richard Pates is the president of the International Society of Addiction Journal Editors, ISAGE. He's a clinical psychologist and has worked for over 25 years for the NHS. Richard, please, take the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I must say what a delight it is to be in this lovely city of Lisbon, which I think probably makes a perfect conference venue with all the attributes that it has. Really, I'd like to echo a lot of what Robert has said about this conference. As someone who's been involved in the addiction field for about 30 years, I attended a lot of conferences, and gradually I saw them becoming repetitive and less interesting, and the same things being said. So being part of the organisation of this conference, although being a very small part, I found it very exciting to see what was coming through, what was being submitted. I think we're living in a very exciting time in our field. When I started, it was at the beginning of the HIV epidemic, and things seemed to change then a lot, and then it seemed to become quite moribund. But in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, it's become very exciting. And looking at what is happening now, I think this makes for a very exciting conference with lots of very interesting papers. My organisation, the International Society of Addiction Journal Editors, colloquially known as ISAGE, which has nothing to do with the weather or climate change, but is just a nice acronym, represents journal editors of peer-reviewed journals which publish probably most of your output. So although we're small, we're actually quite, not say important, but we're quite an influential body in terms of the dissemination of scientific literature, and certainly in terms of addiction knowledge. And we're very proud to do that and be the gatekeepers of that. And as I said, I think the excitement of the quality of the material here, the range of subjects, the new subjects that are coming up, the new topics, is an incredible opportunity. And I think if a proportion, a quarter of the people in this auditorium also think about the meeting of old friends here. One of the things is that in the short time just waiting in the waiting area, the number of old friends from going back many years from all over the world, and it is indeed a lovely opportunity, an opportunity to network and meet up with people. I think ECMDDA have done an incredible job, and again echoing Robert and what has happened in running this conference in such a short time, and getting so many people, and looking at the way that it's been oversubscribed has been actually very exciting. So I just wish you all a very happy conference. Make sure you network with plenty of people, and make sure you finish those papers and submit them to us for good quality papers. Thank you.
Philippe Roux is here representing DJ Sante of the European Commission. Philippe is the head of the Health Determinants Unit. And among his main responsibilities is addictions. It's one of the main areas of activities of his unit. So thank you very much, and please do take the floor.
Dear Secretary of State, dear panelists and dear participants, let me ask the previous speakers that I'm very honored to be with you today, of course in Lisbon, and to discuss addiction. It's, for those in the room who knows me, probably a question whether I'm addicted to Lisbon or am I addicted to the addiction scene, because it's more than 20 years that I tried to escape and I'm back either in Lisbon or in the addiction scene, for good or bad reasons, I don't know. But as it was said before, I'm also convinced that this event, and if you look at the program, it is impressive, and it brings together expertise from all over the world here in Europe, and I think the organizers can be very proud of that. I am sure it will be an important contribution to raise awareness, but also to spread knowledge and create cooperation on this highly complex topic, which includes not only substance use, as we know classically, alcohol, illicit drugs, tobacco, but also, for example, and I'm sure you will talk about it, you will discuss about it, pathological gambling or problematic internet use and social media addictions. So, new trends, new developments to discuss. You know probably that in Europe, a heavy price is paid to the addictions to illicit drugs in particular. It is a major problem for individuals, it is a problem for families, of course, and it is a problem for community and the society as a whole. You all know that, you are the experts. For many affected people, their addiction constitutes a long-term and damaging problem, where relapse is common and recovery is difficult to achieve. As you certainly know, the Juncker Commission has among its priorities, its key priorities, the objective of job, growth and investment. It's very clear that addictions constitute a heavy burden, as I just said, on individual health and well-being, on society, but also on our economies. The job capacity lost is immense linked to addictions. And therefore, they must be a priority to consider in the context of this priority of this Commission. Let me share rapidly with you some details of the work of the European Commission. First, you certainly know that the Drug Strategy 2013-2020 and the EU Action Plan on Drug 2013 and 2016 sets the EU's political framework and priorities. What is important to remind, and that is, I think, one of our achievements, is that the strategy provides a common framework for responding to the drug phenomenon within and outside the EU. It aims to contribute to reduce the demand of drugs and drug supply within the EU. But in addition, and I think that's very important, it comprises cross-cutting themes, of course coordination, which is essential, but also international cooperation, research, information, monitoring and evaluation. So a very ambitious approach. The Commission is currently undertaking a progress review of the implementation of the EU drug strategy and of its action plan, covering this first period. The Commission progress report is expected by the end of this year.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Now, our final speaker at this opening ceremony is Fernando Leal da Costa, the Secretary of State, Assistant to the Minister of Health. Secretary of State, we're delighted that you've been able to join us, even though you've had such a busy schedule in these days. So please do take the floor. Thank you very much.
Good
Morning to all, welcome, distinguished panel. Thank you very much for being here and above all for having chosen Lisbon to organize this meeting. It's really a pleasure for us to have you all here. We do believe at the Ministry of Health, and this is the reason why I'm here, that addictions, above all, are a health problem that cannot be solved by health alone. I don't know really many problems, health problems that can be solved by health alone, but this one clearly is something that cannot be solved by health interventions alone. And I'm sure that we have a lot of experts from many fields here in Portugal to attend this meeting. We have had a very strong commitment on fighting drugs addiction. We have had for many years a policy that we believe can be followed by many of you. We do accept that it's not perfect. We do accept that it will have to be improved. And we also accept that we have to look into some other countries' experiences, including the ones that are going on in the United States and Uruguay, for instance. But we do believe that the model that we have is a rational, sensible way of at least trying to address the problem from the health point of view on its inception. We have had a very strong commitment against death penalty, and this is something that we will not ever change, as it is part of our culture. Actually, we were the very first countries in the world to abolish death penalty, and we have, as I said, a strong international commitment to put the fight against addiction, including drug addictions, mainly in the health agenda. We have created, as has been mentioned, a Directorate General for the problems of addiction. And we've done this because we believe that now is the time to address all types of addictive behaviors in a comprehensive manner. Obviously that when I say all, it will have to be between brackets, because we all know that we are always dealing with new types of addiction. And we have something that is now very common, which is addiction substitution. People that change from one addiction to another. And this has always to be addressed in a comprehensive way. And as a matter of fact, although we have a specific program on tobacco that is run by the General Director of Health, it is my intention to give to CCAD a more prominent role in what it has to do with the tobacco consumption behavior, or tobacco or behavior that determines tobacco consumption, including what has to be done in the youth. Dr. Golão, as you all know, is the national coordinator for the addictions. We, as part of our program, have been running for many years now a sort of a forum that comprises several agents on the civil society, including some of the industries that are involved with the problem of legal addictions, like, as I mentioned, alcohol and tobacco. We have done several important organizational things, but we have also addressed the point. I'm not completely sure that it was as effective as one would like it to be, but for at least we were able to sort of abolish the legal commerce of the so-called legal highs. And as far as I know, we're the first European countries to address this problem in an effective way. We have had for many years a plan for the control of addictions that has been monitored, and all the results are published. And we have done a lot, at least we have tried, and I think we have done a lot in terms of international cooperation. Not only organizing this meeting, but we have very much involved with the European Union, with the Commission and the Council, obviously with the EMCDA, which is, as you know, based in Lisbon, but also we have been developing a lot of cooperation with the countries that speak Portuguese all over the world, and this has been very important, again, because it's an opportunity to expand our intervention beyond Europe. We were lucky enough, and I think that we were very proficient in leading the joint action of alcohol harm reduction. That produced a lots of good work. And as part of it, and I was in one of the final sections of this program, I believe that as a consequence of that, we should revisit the alcohol strategy in European terms. I've talked to Philippe myself more than once about this. Our minister actually wrote the commissioner, and as I'm this afternoon going to Brussels for a Council of Health Ministers, the informal one, I'm sure that I will have a chance to again talk to the health ministers and in order to put this in the European agenda, because I do believe it is important, and we as an alcohol producing country, don't forget to taste the Portuguese wines, I believe that we have a role to present and to take part in this European strategy. Again, thank you very much for being here. Please follow Philippe's advice, get addicted to Lisbon, but I will be even more emphatic. Please get addicted to Portugal. It is a great country, and above all, I wish you good work, and please do come back. Thank you very much.